just in case we needed any more evidence of how insane the NBA can be in terms of free agency, trade requests, years in advance of those things actually needing to happen, Giannis Antetokounmpo has come out and basically said the clock is ticking in Milwaukee. This is what Giannis said, quote, "Next summer it would make more sense for both parties, and even then, I don't know. I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know what everybody's doing on the same page, everybody going for a championship, everybody's gonna sacrifice time away from their family like I do, and if I don't feel like that, I'm not signing," end quote. Now, the reason all this is coming up is because Giannis is very soon, this offseason, extension eligible. He has the opportunity to re-sign with Milwaukee on a huge supermax contract and recommit to the franchise for another 4 to 5 seasons. However, he also has the option to wait, and in the 2025 offseason, he has a player option. He can be a free agent 2 years from right now, and that's a very concerning thing if you're a Bucks fan, because this time around for Giannis, compared to the first time that we had this conversation about Giannis potentially leaving, maybe going to Miami, maybe going to Dallas, put the best team you have on the floor out there by trading someone like Eric Bledsoe or trading for someone like Gallinari and Bogdanovic to guarantee that Giannis does not have any other options. Win a title, offer him $250 million, and if he says no, you never had a chance in the first place anyway of re-signing him. Things are much different now for Milwaukee, not only in terms of their roster construction, not only in terms of Giannis's goals, but also the landscape of the league itself. And it's important to continue to go back to that situation and compare it to this one, because that time around, Giannis was still largely trying to prove himself specifically as a postseason player. And the Bucks were still trying to prove that they could continue to put a championship team around Giannis, and whether or not those two things were going to come together into an actual title was a question mark. And at the time, Milwaukee was willing to be aggressive in adding pieces to their team, most specifically the Jrue Holiday trade, then immediately after Giannis signs the extension, and then of course they go on to win the title, and everything works out perfectly for Milwaukee. However, at the time, when you don't have a championship, when you're completely 100% afraid if you're Milwaukee that Giannis is actually going to leave, there's a lot more motivation on each side to try and make it work. Giannis knows, he's said this publicly, that winning that title in Milwaukee meant way more winning it there than it would have had he left to Dallas or Miami or any LA team or any big market team. It wouldn't have meant as much had he left. He got his first title with his hometown team, and that means a lot. But that also means that maybe he doesn't need to just prove that the rest of his career now. He has that homegrown championship, and now he has the opportunity potentially in 2 years or before that, if he requests a trade, to go around to these other teams to create other super teams and win even more titles, and also have the respect of having that first title in Milwaukee. Now, the other massive part of this, of course, for Milwaukee is the roster construction. Like, at the time that they went out and they got Jrue Holiday, they traded all this draft compensation. It was a huge move. It was surprising for a lot of people that they were willing to give up that much for Jrue Holiday, and of course it results in a title. But that version of the NBA, the landscape back then, is completely different than what Milwaukee's going to experience over the next couple of seasons. This most recent offseason, they were able to bring back Brook Lopez. They were able to bring back Chris Middleton. Of course, that's going to keep Giannis happy. But Jrue Holiday is a free agent next offseason, and even if they decide to bring back Jrue Holiday or he decides to return, that doesn't guarantee this Milwaukee team anything. Everybody around Giannis is getting pretty old, and their play has been declining, and or they've been getting hurt a lot. And at a certain point, when you're a superstar the way that Giannis is, you can start to feel that pull of like, I know what it felt like when we won the title in 2021. I know what it felt like to have everybody else pulling in the same direction, and now all of a sudden Jrue Holiday might not be as good. Certainly offensively, he's taking a step back. Chris Middleton was hurt for a lot of last year. Brook Lopez has had health issues, and all of a sudden Giannis is looking around thinking, I'm the only reason that this is working because I can't count on any of these other guys. Not to mention the fact that as things continue to change over the next couple of seasons in the NBA in terms of how rosters are constructed, payroll, salaries, the new CBA, all that, it's going to be harder and harder for teams like Milwaukee not only to spend a ton of money outside of a player in Giannis that's going to be making $60+ million a year on his new contract, but also to continue to put pieces around him that make them a successful and a championship team without having a massive luxury tax bill and or being really limited in terms of what they can do in terms of improving the roster because of the second apron. If you just go ahead and put in a Jrue Holiday contract, re-signing next offseason in addition to Middleton, Lopez, and Giannis's big deal, that's the team. That's the roster. You can't really do a whole lot else in terms of money, in terms of trades. The second apron is really prohibitive once you get to that spending number. And I think that might be what Giannis is thinking about now, is he's probably wondering, were they a little bit conservative in their offers for Middleton and Lopez during the season, thus allowing them to go to free agency and almost losing those guys? And then as a result, is there a guarantee that Jrue Holiday is going to be returning next season because of the expense that would add to this team? And are they going to be going into next year worse than they are going into the season this year just because of the spending crunch? And even if they do bring back Jrue Holiday, Holiday, that team that they have this season is probably the best version that they're going to have over the next couple years if they keep that core together, because those guys continue to get older and have issues staying healthy and just not progressing as NBA players. And all those things are massively concerning for a player that is already proven that he has what it takes to be the best guy on a title team for a team that he did not go out and create. And I think that's what these comments mean, are he now is focused on how many championships can I win throughout the history of my career. I already have one with Milwaukee, and at this point, I'm just trying to put myself in the best situation to win titles. I want to finish my career with 4, 5, 6, 7 titles if I can. How do I accomplish that? And it's very clear that Milwaukee over the next couple of seasons might not represent his best opportunity to win a title. If he can go to Miami, if he can go to Dallas, if he can go to a variety of different situations, all of those might represent a better championship opportunity for him than what exists in Milwaukee. And these comments continually talking about making sure everybody's committed, making sure everybody wants to win a championship, making sure that they're not going into a rebuild. Maybe he's starting to understand the way this team is going and the direction that they're going in. And by the time he becomes a free agent in 2025, this era of Milwaukee Bucks basketball, the Middleton, Holiday, Lopez plus Giannis group, it's going to be really difficult to continue to sustain that. And given the assets that they have on the roster, not to mention the financial constraints of those contracts and the second apron that go with it, there's not really a way for them to then just randomly create a championship contender out of nowhere with this roster by trading away Holiday or Middleton. There's no path there. And so he's probably looking at the situation and thinking 2025 is the perfect year. I get a couple more years of trying to see if this group is going to work. I can pressure Milwaukee into making different moves to try and continually improve the roster because they're nervous that I'm going to leave. And maybe it works. And maybe we're still title contenders. They continue to reshape the roster and I re-sign and everything's okay. But if they don't, I'm going to start looking at other options. I'm going to start looking at places where I can truly win titles, because Giannis knows that if he's healthy, Milwaukee's going to win at least 50, 55 games. They've got a new coach this year. They're continually trying to change things. But no matter what happens with the health of everyone else, they're going to be one of the best teams in the conference because of him. But if that championship success, that playoff success isn't there, I can guarantee you he's going to start looking elsewhere. Now, there might be a lot of skepticism towards that statement and that mindset, because before, Giannis proved to us that he was willing to be loyal, that he really wanted to stay in Milwaukee. And despite all of these rumors and quite frankly, all these opportunities that he had, there were teams lining up, setting up their payroll sheets to make sure that they had max contract money to pay Giannis to get them to come to his team. Despite all that, he decided to stay. But you have to understand the differences in these situations. That Milwaukee team was a team on the rise. It was a team that had Giannis, who hadn't won a title yet, who still wanted to prove that he could do it in Milwaukee, and he wanted to remain loyal to them. None of those things are true now. And he can, realistically, he can leave Milwaukee, go to a better championship situation, and not really face the repercussions of, oh, he's just bouncing around to all these super teams, because he's already done it and he doesn't really need to have that same loyalty to Milwaukee. This kind of, number of years in the league, this kind of era in players' careers, that between being in the league 8 to 11, 12 years, this is when guys change teams. This is when it happens, and it definitely could be happening for Giannis here pretty soon.